So where should someone start if they're wanting to incorporate more work-life balance into their lives, into their personal life, and how they go about their day-to-day work?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. And I think it starts with a conviction. I do a lot of coaching with leaders and individuals, and we always talk about mindset is such an important grounding. If you can change your mindset around like how you've been thinking about what's possible, then it really allows you to start to open up and experiment. Having that conviction and then being willing to experiment and being willing to kind of take it piece by piece. It doesn't have to all happen right away. But little changes can be really impactful. And I think the other thing that's so important, I'm really guilty of this myself. I can be really independent and want to solve things on my own. But the reality is, we exist in communities with other people and we have to ask for help. Asking for help, asking whether it's your manager or your colleagues or even your family to help you with this desire that you have and this goal that you have, that accountability can be really helpful as you start to move forward. Really making sure that you have people around you who can help you, and looking for those folks is important. And again, that's why ThirdPath is such a great community, because if you don't have it in your life now, you will meet people at ThirdPath who will be able to be those people for you.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, my last question for you is a two-part question. So as a woman, what advice would you give to other women about work-life integration? And then the second part of that, more specifically, as a Black woman, to other Black women about how to deal with some of the same issues?
As a woman, I think many of us recognize as women that we have many different roles that we play in our lives. And work is just one role, and many are trying to juggle some of those roles while at work, people calling and places you have to be and all of that. And I think it's really important to let people know that you do have a life outside of work. Your identity is not just as a worker. You have colleagues or your manager or people around you that you want to allow some transparency around, like, I've got these other responsibilities and sometimes I'm gonna have to juggle, and I need your support with that. I think that can be one of the ways in which we can start making progress. And I think it also gives other women permission too to be able to do the same thing. I recognize that's not always safe in every work environment. So, it's sometimes proceed with caution, but I do think we are in a place where it's no longer taboo to talk about the fact that we have a whole life outside of just our work obligations, and we can negotiate to be able to have the time to spend in those different areas so we can nurture those parts of our life. As a Black woman, I think one of the things that, I'm constantly cognizant of from my own experience, but also from the experience of some of my girlfriends and colleagues that I've worked with who are also women of color and Black women, is that we often feel this weight and pressure to be the example, to bridge the gap, whether that's generational wealth gap or opportunity gaps, and so that pressure can cause us to work even harder to get in this mode of, we're in, like, we hear about hustle culture all the time. I've got 20 things going on. And while ultimately the goal is good, is to, continue to build ourselves and our families and our communities, I think it's also really important to remember that it took generations for other communities to build what is now existing, and it's going to take time, and we don't have to carry all that burden on our own, and giving ourselves a little bit of grace and recognizing that we need rest. And in fact, when we are rested, when we take time to really feed into ourselves and we set appropriate boundaries with other people and we start to enjoy the life that we have, we show up differently. That was something that was really important to me personally. Part of the reason I decided to take a sabbatical, nobody in my family has taken a sabbatical. That was not something that was common. And I actually called my mom and dad and I was like, I was going to do this. And, thankfully I have a great family, and they were like, you know what, you need to, because you've been working really hard for a really long time. And so it's nice to have that support. But I needed to be able to step back and say, what am I doing all of this for? What's really important to do? What do I want to have an impact on in my life, my family's life, my friendships, my marriage, and my, and then my career? Where do I really want to have an impact? Where do I want to put that energy? And I can't distribute it everywhere. And so I encourage other Black women as, we continue on this journey of trying to figure out, like, what is the right mix for us, that it is going to be unique for each one of us, but to not be afraid to go for it and to ask for it and to expect it, because, you've earned it. You've worked very hard to get to where you are, and, take the risk of finding what more you can actually gain from it to be able to enjoy the life that you have.